Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're going to be looking at metal forging, specifically a company called Ramkrishna Forging.
Oh, cool.
You gave us their latest earnings call transcript,
Yeah,
and we're going to try to break it down and see what we can find.
sounds good. Should be interesting to see how they're doing, with the global stuff going on.
Right.
I mean, we still need those traditional automotive components, but everyone's talking about electric vehicles these days. It's a weird time.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely a lot of change happening. We'll look into some of those growth figures and expansion plans.
Okay.
And I even see some stuff in here about how they handle raw material costs. That can be really useful for you.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So, just to start, Ramkrishna Forging, they mostly manufacture forged metal components. Most of their business is in the automotive industry,
Okay.
but it seems like they're trying to branch out a bit.
Yeah, smart move. They're trying to get ahead of the curve,
Right.
Even with all the economic weirdness going on, it seems like they're pretty confident.
Yeah.
They're going with expansion instead of just sticking with one industry.
Yeah, diversification, that's the word.
Yeah, exactly.
And speaking of uncertainty, they've got to be dealing with those crazy raw material price swings.
Oh, absolutely. They even said that raw material price increases slowed down their revenue growth by like 3%.
Wow.
But get this, domestic steel prices actually went down by 3,000 INR per metric ton.
Really?
And export prices dropped even more by 4,500 INR.
Okay, so prices are going up, but also down. How does that work?
Well, it depends. Different
Yeah.
materials, where it's coming from, all that stuff. But yeah, these swings mess with their financials for sure.
Yeah.
They talked about Forex losses too.
Forex losses, what are those?
It's basically losses because of changes in currency exchange rates. It's a whole thing, but basically those changes can really cut into their profits.
Makes sense. So what are they doing about all of this? Are they just crossing their fingers and hoping for the best?
No way. They're actually using hedging to deal with the currency risks.
Oh.
Yeah. Think of it like insurance for their money.
What?
They're hedging around 50–60% of their exports.
Mhm.
It seems to be working, though, because they actually had a net currency gain of 20 crore INR for the first 9 months of the fiscal year.
Wow. So they're not just sitting around.
No, definitely not.
They have a plan. But back to their expansion,
Yeah.
it sounds like they're going all in.
Oh, yeah. It's aggressive, for sure. They're aiming for, get this, a 50% increase in their installed capacity by the end of the fiscal year.
Whoa, that's a huge jump.
It is.
And where's all this capacity going? Are they just building more of the same stuff?
Actually, no, they're being really strategic about it. Like, they're adding a 3,000 metric ton aluminum forging facility, but it's specifically for electric vehicle components.
Oh, interesting.
Smart move, right. That sector is just going to keep growing.
For sure. They're trying to ride that wave. But what if it doesn't work out? Aren't they worried about putting all their eggs in one basket?
Well, that's where the diversification comes in, right? They're also adding stuff for port forging, and they have a new casting plant in the works. So that lets them work with all sorts of industries.
I see.
They're expanding into things like oil and gas, railways, even mining and farm equipment.
Right. So if one area slows down, they've got others to fall back on.
Exactly.
Kind of like diversifying your investments.
Yep. It's all about managing risk and being ready for anything.
So they're adding capacity, diversifying, but how are they going to make sure it's all being used? Empty factories don't exactly make money.
Good point.
Yeah.
They're aiming for like over 80% utilization of that new casting capacity by the last quarter of fiscal year 2026.
Okay.
And overall, they're going for 15% year-on-year growth over the next 2 years.
That's a pretty healthy target.
It is.
So let's get into the nitty-gritty, the financials.
Right.
We know raw materials hit their revenue, but overall, are they actually doing okay? Are they making money?
Yeah, they're doing pretty well, actually. Their consolidated revenue for the quarter was INR 173.78 crore, which is up 8% year over year.
Okay.
But what's really impressive is their volume actually went up by almost 14%.
Wow, so even with the prices affecting revenue, they're selling more stuff.
Exactly. Yeah, and if you look at their 9-month revenue, it's even better. INR 386.89 crore.
Okay.
That's a 13% increase year over year.
So it's not just a one-time thing.
Nope. Definitely a trend.
They're on a roll. But what's driving all this growth? Is it just that EV boom everyone's talking about?
It's a mix of things.
Okay.
They're really going after new customers. They're launching new products, especially for those two-wheelers and passenger vehicles.
Yeah.
And of course, expanding into those new sectors is helping. They even mentioned a 600 crore INR order just from mining and earth moving in the last quarter.
Whoa, that's huge. But with all this growth, There've got to be some challenges too, right? It can't be all sunshine and
Oh,
rainbows.
sure. One of the big ones they talked about is demand for commercial vehicles slowing down.
Oh, right. Makes sense.
They're still pretty dependent on that sector recovering, so it's something to keep an eye on.
Yeah. And then there's all the global stuff, tensions, trade wars, those crazy currency swings we were talking about earlier.
Yep, all that.
That's got to be a headache for them.
Oh, absolutely. It's a lot to deal with, but they seem to be handling it pretty well so far.
Okay, so we have a decent overview of their financials, the expansion stuff, some of the challenges they're facing. But there's got to be more to this story, right?
Mm-hmm.
What about those interesting details you mentioned, the stuff that makes this company unique?
Oh, yeah. Let's get into that. You mentioned the raw material costs earlier, right?
Yeah, I'm always fascinated by how companies handle those ups and downs.
Well, they actually went into some detail about how those steel price decreases messed with their inventory valuation.
Inventory valuation.
Yeah.
You'd have to explain that one. It sounds kind of complicated.
Oh, it's not too bad. Basically, when the price of steel goes down, the value of all the steel they have just sitting in their warehouses also goes down. And that can impact their profits, especially if they bought that steel at a higher price before.
So it's like if you bought a bunch of bananas and then they went on sale the next day.
Exactly. Except we're not talking about a few bananas, it's tons and tons of steel.
Right, that makes sense. So those price drops actually hurt them.
Yeah, it was part of those Forex losses we talked
Ah.
about. It's all connected.
Wow. Business is complicated.
It is.
So what else is affecting their bottom line?
Well, there are a few specific expenses they mentioned.
Okay, lay it on me.
First, there was a one-time expense of 5 crore INR for setting up that new subsidiary in Mexico.
So that's like the cost of getting a new apartment,
Yeah.
You got to pay the deposit, moving expenses, all that.
Exactly. New ventures always have those upfront costs.
Right. Okay. What else?
They also had to deal with a 7 crore INR increase in labor wages.
Ouch.
Minimum wage hikes,
Yeah, wages have been going up everywhere.
Yep. It's the times we live in.
Okay. Startup costs and wage hikes.
Hmm.
Anything else?
One more thing. They mentioned a 6 crore INR expense for their booth at the Hanover Fair.
The Hanover Fair, what's that?
It's this massive international trade fair. Companies from all over show off their products and services.
Oh, wow.
It's a pretty big deal for a company like Ramkrishna Forging to be there.
I bet. But it's probably worth it, right? I mean, if they get some big orders from that, 6 crore is nothing.
Oh, for sure. It's an investment. They're trying to reach new customers, expand globally.
Right, so it's strategic spending, not just frivolous stuff.
Exactly.
They're investing in growth. But all these costs, the raw material stuff, the global uncertainty, it sounds like a lot to handle. Are they going to be able to make it through?
Well, that's the big question, isn't it?
It is. Guess we'll have to keep digging to find out. What else is in this earnings call?
There's still a lot to go through. They talk about new orders, their capacity utilization targets, and their plans for the future.
This is getting good. Let's take a quick break and we'll come back to dissect the rest of this earnings call. Stay tuned. Okay, so we're back and ready to get even deeper into this Ramkrishna Forging situation.
Let's do it.
Before the break, we were talking about those expenses, how they're affecting the bottom line.
Yeah.
But I really want to hear more about these new orders they're getting. It sounds like they're coming from some pretty interesting places.
Oh, yeah, definitely. It's not just about the number of orders. It's also about where they're coming from. Remember, they're really working on diversifying their customers.
Yeah, so instead of just relying on the automotive industry,
Right.
they're branching out. So tell me more about these new clients. What kind of projects are they working on?
Okay, so they highlighted a few key sectors.
Okay.
First up is mining and earth moving. They actually got a massive 600 crore INR order just from that, just in the last quarter.
600 crore. What kind of forged components do they even need for mining? I mean,
Right.
It's not like they're making tiny little gears or something.
No, think about all that heavy machinery.
Okay.
Like excavators, bulldozers, crushers, all that stuff. Those machines need parts that can really take a beating.
Yeah.
That's where Ramkrishna Forging comes in. They're the ones making those heavy-duty forged components that can handle the tough conditions in a mine.
Oh, I see what you mean. It's not just about cars and trucks anymore. So what other industries are they getting into?
Well, they're seeing some serious growth in oil and gas. Got a 54 crore INR order from that in the last quarter.
Interesting. So they're going from digging in the dirt to like extracting oil and gas?
Yep, they're covering all the bases.
They are. And don't forget about railways.
Oh, yeah, right. Another area where they're seeing more demand, they mentioned a 43 crore INR order from railways too, just in the last quarter.
So they're really going after all those big industries, the ones that need heavy-duty stuff, the ones that need those durable components. Seems like a pretty smart move considering how shaky the global economy is right now.
Oh yeah, definitely. Spreading the risk by diversifying, that makes them less vulnerable if one sector takes a hit.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
But how are they actually winning these orders? I mean, are they the only ones making this stuff?
No, there are tons of companies in the forging industry.
Right.
But they're winning because they've built this reputation,
Okay.
for quality and being reliable, for their technical expertise.
So it's not just about having the right products.
Yep.
It's about relationships, about having a good track record.
Exactly. They've been around for a while, and they
Yes.
consistently deliver. That matters, especially in industries where if things break down, it costs a ton of money.
Oh, for sure. No one wants to use some cheap part that's going to cause a whole excavator to fall apart.
Yeah.
So they're getting new orders, diversifying,
Mm-hmm.
but how are they making sure they could actually fill all these orders? Their capacity is already pretty stretched, right?
Yeah, but remember those big expansion plans?
Right, right.
Mm.
They're trying to increase their capacity by like 50% by the end of the year.
Yeah.
And they're not just building more of the same stuff.
Yeah.
They're adding specific facilities
Okay.
so they can meet the needs of these new industries they're going after.
So they're really backing it up with action, not just talk.
Exactly. They're showing those clients that they're serious about meeting their needs.
I like it. Actions speak louder than words.
They do.
But with all this growth, all these targets,
Yeah.
aren't they worried about spreading themselves too thin? Could this backfire on them?
That's a good question. It's always a risk, right? When companies grow too fast,
Right.
especially when they go into new markets,
Yeah.
it's easy to make mistakes.
So what could go wrong?
Well, their resources could get stretched too thin.
Okay.
They'll have to hire a bunch of new people,
Yeah.
get them trained, manage all these new supply chains, and figure out all the new regulations in different places.
Right, it's complicated.
And it costs money. Exactly. And what if their predictions are wrong? Like, what if those mining components or those oil and gas parts,
Yeah.
what if they don't sell as well as they thought?
That's a risk too.
Right?
They could end up with a bunch of extra capacity they don't need.
Yeah.
Wasted resources, lower profits, all that.
So they're really walking a tightrope here,
Hmm.
trying to be ambitious but also careful.
Yeah, exactly. It's all about balance. But honestly, they seem to be doing a pretty good job so far.
Yeah.
They're being strategic, thinking things through, not just throwing money at the problem.
Okay, so they're aware of the risks and they're trying to manage them.
Yep.
But what about the good stuff? What are the potential rewards if this all works out?
Well, if they pull it off,
Yeah.
they could become a huge player in the forging industry, like not just in India, but globally.
Oh, wow. So they could really be forging a global empire?
Well, maybe empire is a bit much,
Okay.
but they're definitely on their way to becoming a major force in the industry. And for their investors, that means big revenue growth, more profits, and a higher stock price.
So everyone wins.
Yeah.
But besides the money, are there other benefits to all this growth?
Oh, tons. Their expansion could mean more jobs, both in India and those other countries where they're building facilities.
Yeah.
And when they try to meet the needs of all these new sectors, that often leads to new innovations, new technology for the whole forging industry.
So it's not just about profits.
Yep.
They're helping the economy and pushing the industry forward.
Exactly. And don't forget about the environment.
Oh, right.
As they get more involved in EVs and renewable energy, they're going to be part of making things cleaner, more sustainable.
So they could be forging a greener future.
Yeah, exactly.
I like that. But let's be real, there are always bumps in the road. We talked about the economy, the possibility of them expanding too quickly. But what other challenges might they run into?
Well, one thing they mentioned is getting the right people.
Yeah, hiring.
They're going to need skilled workers, engineers, managers, all that as they grow.
Right.
But with everyone looking for those same people,
Yeah.
it's not easy.
No. Finding good people is always tough.
It is. And they also talked about managing those raw material price swings, which we've already discussed.
Oh, right, right.
Yeah.
They're already hedging for the currency stuff.
Yeah.
But they also need to figure out how to handle the ups and downs of steel and other commodities.
Right. They've got to stay flexible, be able to adjust their plans if
Yeah.
they want to stay ahead of the game.
It sounds like a lot to juggle,
It is.
especially for a big company with so many moving parts.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about new orders, their expansion, the potential good and bad of their growth strategy, and some of those challenges they're facing. I think I'm starting to get a pretty clear picture of this company, where they're headed. But before we move on, I want to go back to something you mentioned earlier about using hedging to manage currency risk.
Sure.
Can you break that down a bit more? I think
Yeah.
some of our listeners might not be familiar with that.
Sure. Hedging is basically a way to protect yourself from losing money
Yeah.
because of changes in exchange rates. It's like insurance for your money.
Okay, there's like insurance on your house in case of a fire.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
You buy insurance so you don't lose everything if your house burns down.
Right.
Companies use hedging so they don't lose money if the exchange rates go crazy.
Makes sense. But how does it actually work?
Well, there are a few ways to do it, but
Right.
Ramkrishna Forging is basically signing these contracts
Okay.
that lock in a certain exchange rate for a specific amount of time.
Okay.
So even if the real exchange rate goes up or down, they're protected
I see.
because they already have a good rate locked in.
So it's like prepaying for your gas at a certain price so that even if prices go up,
Yeah,
you're still paying the lower price.
that's a perfect example. And remember, their strategy seems to be working because they actually made money from currency stuff so far this year.
So they're not just playing the lottery with currencies. They're being strategic and managing their risk.
Exactly. And that's the takeaway here. They're not just waiting around reacting to things as they happen. They're planning for the future,
Yeah.
making moves to set themselves up for success.
I'm impressed. It sounds like they really know what they're doing.
They do. It'll be really interesting to see how it all plays out.
Yeah.
Can they hit those big goals? Can they handle the tough stuff and take advantage of the good stuff?
Those are the million-dollar questions.
They are.
But I have a feeling this is just the beginning of their story. They seem like they're about to do something big.
I think so too.
It really shows that even in a crazy world like this,
Yeah.
companies can do amazing things
Right.
if they have a clear vision, a solid plan, and the guts to follow through.
Absolutely.
All right, we've gone deep on the financials, expansion, the good, the bad, the challenges. What else is there to dig into in this earnings call?
We've still got more to talk about. They talked about their plans for using all that capacity, their investments in research and development,
Oh, yeah.
and what they see for the future.
This is turning into a really fascinating deep dive.
It is. And we're not done yet.
All right, let's get right back into it. All right, we're back for the final part of our Ramkrishna Forging deep dive.
Yeah.
We've covered a lot of ground, their financials, those huge expansion plans, and even how they're handling the crazy currency stuff with that hedging thing.
It has been a wild ride.
It has. We've uncovered a lot about how this company works, what makes them tick.
We have.
But before we wrap up, I want to make sure everyone listening really gets the big picture.
Yeah.
What are the key takeaways here? What can we all learn from Ramkrishna Forging's story?
Well, I think the biggest thing is how important it is to be able to adapt.
Okay.
The world is changing so fast,
Yeah.
If companies can't change with it, they're going to get left behind. But Ramkrishna Forging, they're not just reacting to these changes, they're actually trying to shape the future. They're embracing new technologies like EVs and diversifying their portfolio so they can work with all sorts of industries.
That's like they're not just riding the wave, they're building their own surfboard.
Exactly. That's a good way to put it.
And that's a good lesson for all of us, I think, no matter what you do.
Yeah,
You got to keep learning, keep evolving, try to stay ahead of the game.
absolutely.
So adaptability, check. What else?
Another big takeaway is strategic thinking. Ramkrishna Forging isn't growing just for the sake of it,
Right.
They have a vision, they know where they want to be,
Yeah.
and they're making specific moves to get there. That focus on diversification, the expansion stuff,
Right.
making sure everything runs smoothly, it's all part of a bigger plan.
It's like they're playing chess, always thinking several moves ahead.
Exactly. And I think that's something we can all do in our own lives, our careers.
Yeah, like setting goals.
Yep. We need a plan. We got to think strategically.
So adaptability and strategic thinking. Got it. Anything else?
One more thing, maybe the most important thing, resilience.
Okay.
There are always challenges in business, right? Uncertainties. But Ramkrishna Forging shows that you can get through the tough times and come out even stronger.
They're like that forging hammer
Yeah, it can take a ton of pressure and still keep going.
and still make something amazing.
Exactly. Their commitment to doing new things, building those relationships, and their determination, that's all part of how they stay resilient.
Those are all good things to have.
They are.
So adaptability, strategic thinking, and resilience.
Yeah.
3 big lessons we can all take away from this deep dive into Ramkrishna Forging.
And remember, it's not just for businesses.
Oh, right. Yeah. It's for life.
Exactly. No matter what challenges you're facing at work, at home,
Yeah.
those qualities can help you get through them.
They can help you reach your goals.
Right.
So as you go about your day, think about Ramkrishna Forging. Think about those three things: adaptability, strategic thinking, and resilience.
Yeah.
How can you use those ideas in your own life? How can you be more adaptable, more strategic, more resilient?
Good question.
That's something for everyone listening to think about.
It is.
And on that note, this has been our deep dive into Ramkrishna Forging. We hope you enjoyed the journey. We hope you learned something new along the way.
We'll be back with another deep dive soon.
Until then, keep exploring.